And we're now on air.
Great.
Hello everyone. Welcome to Lunchtime Live. It's been a while since we've done one of these. It's a couple of months now, I think.
Yeah. Right.
So, hello, welcome. I'm Adrian Mather. I work in the communications team here at FreeAgent, and I'm joined with Emily Coltman, FCA, who is our chief accountant, brilliant chief accountant, bilingual in both accountingese and plain English. We're here today to talk about expenses. This is a hangout that's going to be all about managing small business expenses.
Yep.
So we see that there's been quite a few questions that have come through already.
Good.
If you can use the Q&A function that's on the side of this hangout as well, so we can see what you're saying, that would be great. As I said, we're from FreeAgent, online accounting for freelancers and small businesses. We do have regular Q&As with Emily every Wednesday, but today we're hosting this live hangout, so you get to actually ask us either face-to-face or ask us in real time, and we'll answer any of your questions that you have. If you see me surreptitiously looking down into this direction, I have another laptop here with questions and stuff. So yes, if there's anything like that that's happening, that's why I'm not just ignoring you.
You're not sending text messages to some pretty lassie on the other side of the world, then?
No, my wife would kill me. I think what we'll do today is probably start off just with the general expenses question.
Yep.
About why expenses are just so important for small businesses, and then once we've done that, we'll get a bit sort of further and we'll delve a bit deeper and we'll take your questions.
Okay, yep, certainly. So why are expenses so important? Well, expenses, you need to think of your business's total day-to-day running costs, and some of those might be expenses that you pay for out of your own back pocket, some might be what the business pays for, but what we're really crucially focusing on here is expenses that you pay for yourself out of your own back pocket. Now, a business, whatever type it is going to pay tax of some description on the profit that it makes, and that profit is going to be its income less its day-to-day running costs, its total day-to-day running costs. So if you miss out any day-to-day running costs, your profit's going to be too high, and potentially that could mean you pay too much tax. Now, if you want to pay more tax than you have to, be my guest, but it's not a good idea. Now, I'm not talking about doing a Gary Barlow and deliberately avoiding tax. What I'm talking about is not paying more tax than you have to. And if you don't track all your expenses, you could risk doing that. And that counts no matter how small the expense is, because you might think, oh, I've only spent £2 on a cup of coffee, never mind keeping the receipt, never mind photographing that into FreeAgent. But the thing is, £2 spent on a cup of coffee every day soon mounts up, and you will find that you'll pay too much tax if you don't keep tracking it. So do make use of mobile apps like FreeAgent, which you can access through your phone browser. Do make use of that to track expenses. Photograph as soon as you've actually incurred the expense. Then it doesn't matter if you lose the piece of paper.
Okay, and the second question, I think, just as a sort of a warm-up from me, is there's obviously a lot of difference between whether you're a limited company, whether you're a sole trader, and how that affects your expenses. Can you briefly explain sort of what the difference is between claiming expenses as a sole trader and if you're the director of a limited company?
Certainly, Adrian. Okay, well, the difference between a sole trader and a limited company, the crucial difference in this respect is that when you're a sole trader, legally there is no difference between you and the business. Legally, you are the business. When you're running your business through a limited company, it's a separate legal entity from you. Even if you are the only director and the only shareholder, it's still a separate legal entity. So when you're recording your expenses, it's perhaps even more important to record them accurately when you're running your business through a limited company, because the company can actually pay you back for those expenses without any extra tax being incurred, so long as they are bona fide business expenses. But if the company pays you back too much, i.e. if it pays you back for expenses that were not business, or pays you back more than the expenses you actually incurred, there could be extra tax and national insurance to pay. So it's really important to track your out-of-pocket expenses and your other business costs correctly, even if you're a sole trader, because the reason for that is if you put your out-of-pocket expenses into your business bank account, for example, in FreeAgent, if you record them as if they'd come out of the business bank account, just about the first thing a HMRC inspector, whoever comes to visit, will do is look to see whether what your business accounts say in your bank is in your bank account and what your bank says in your bank account match. If they don't, they might well think that you are doing a Gary Barlow and ask you for some more tax, and you don't want to be in that place.
No, quite not.
No.
Okay, what we'll do now is we'll go through to the questions that we've already had through.
Yeah.
As I said, if you're watching and you have something that you want to ask us, open up the Q&A tab, which should be on the left of the hangout screen, which will come up, and then just write whatever you have there, and we'll do our best to answer it. I think we're going to start off with the top one here and just go down. So the top one is from Olive, who asks, how could a limited company, startup, define the limit of client entertainment fee? So yeah, I think what she might be asking is how does client entertaining count if you're a limited company? Apologies if that's not the case, and if it's not, then put a message back and let us know. But I think that's what they're asking.
Yes, I think that's what she's asking too. Okay, Olive. Well, the answer to your question is that if you entertain anyone other than bona fide employees of your company, then you actually can't get tax relief on that. It has to go to business entertaining, not to staff entertaining. Watch out for that, because I actually had a client whose wife helped him a lot in the business. She was unpaid, wasn't a director, wasn't on the payroll. HMRC refused to accept you as an employee for entertaining purposes. So watch out for that.
Okay. Next one is a question from Neil, who asks, as a sole trader, is your general health insurance an expense?
No, I'm afraid the answer is absolutely not, because as a sole trader you are legally the business, remember. HMRC take the view that any medical care, like health insurance or specs to work with, anything like that, even if you just use it for work, HMRC actually take the view that it has what they call an intrinsic private purpose. It helps your health and well-being as a person, not just as a business owner. So I would think HMRC would almost certainly say no to that, I'm afraid, Neil.
Okay, sorry, Neil, but I hope that helps. Next is a question from Alexis, who says, I work in PR, so I represent companies when dealing with media on face-to-face and for product launches. Can my business suit, and by extension dry cleaning, be accounted for expenses?
That's a difficult one, because the thing is that if you are an actor or entertainer or something like that, then something you wear that's not part of your everyday wardrobe could well count as your costume. So, for example, if you're a children's magician and you wear a suit for your work, then that would count as your costume. But in that case, I have to say, Alexis, I think the answer is going to be no. I don't think HMRC would view that as a costume. There was a case where a lady barrister claimed the cost of her court suits, the dark suits she wore in court, and HMRC said, no, you can't have it, because they said those suits keep you warm and decently clad, as well as making you look smart for your business. So I'm afraid I think they'd squash that as well.
Yeah, as I said, it's probably best to actually, if you have any problems with these, then check with your accountant as well, so they'd be able to tell you. We also have an infographic that we've just done on clothing for work, which we'll post in the comment thread on the Hangout page as well, which sort of goes through what you can, what you can't claim, and there are some discrepancies there. Like I know for like TV news readers as well,
that's
they get to claim for some reason.
That's right, because that actually counts as their costume as well. So yes, as Adrian mentioned, there are other issues around clothing. If it's, for example, a recognisable uniform, like a nurse's uniform, or if it's protective clothing for a workman, something like your steel toe cap boots, then you'd be able to claim tax relief on it. But I think an ordinary dark suit, I think you're going to be out of luck, Alexis. Sorry about that.
Okay, next one is a question from Jerome, who says, when a director is non-resident living abroad, what kind of travel expenses can be claimed for a UK registered business with a trading address in the UK?
That's an interesting question, Jerome, because I would actually have to ask you quite a few more questions along the lines of, well, what travel are you looking at claiming? Is it when you come to the UK to visit your clients, for example, or is it when you travel abroad on business? Basically, if it's bona fide business travel, you can usually claim it, but you need to watch out for the rules where HMRC might say that a particular place or particular area is what they call a permanent workplace. And if you're employed by a limited company, those rules could start kicking in after you've done the travel for a couple of years. For a sole trader, it's 6 months. HMRC are much less generous there. So you need to keep a watchful eye out for that. As I say, bona fide business travel, you should be okay, but make sure that your travel counts as bona fide business travel as far as HMRC are concerned.
Okay, I'm going to actually go to the Hangout page because I know that Neil left a couple of questions there, so
Yep.
we'll do them first just to make sure that he gets them answered.
Yes.
He's talking about charity donations.
Right.
So his first question, which is a bit long, so bear with us, is I'm a sole trader and on occasion I've made personal one-off charity donations. Sometimes I've claimed gift aid for them and sometimes not. 1 year after ringing HMRC, because he always submits his self-assessment online, they told me not to enter them unless they were significant amounts, so more than around £50 in the year. He's been using our self-assessment this year with FreeAgent. It seems that as a sole trader, I end up paying my own gift aid for these donations rather than the government. Can you clear this up for me?
Okay, Neil. Well, what I think is happening is if you put charitable donations on your tax return, I would say only put them on if you're claiming. Only put on charitable donations for which you're claiming gift aid if your own tax bill is actually high enough to cover the gift aid. If it isn't, then strictly speaking, then gift aid shouldn't have been claimed, because you do actually have. Excuse me, you do actually have to have paid enough tax to cover the gift aid for the charity to be entitled to the tax relief.
Okay, his second question, he says, if buying or renting software which has a 50% business and 50% personal use, is it worth claiming it as an asset? As it's not a physical object, is it classed differently? Much of the software is subscription-based. How do our expenses fit in with this new payment method?
Subscription-based software, I would say, is an expense, a running cost, not a capital asset. If you're a sole trader, Neil, just put in the business element of the software, so just put in the 50%.
Okay, back to the Q&As here. My wife is a shareholder but not a director of my company. Would she still be eligible for staff entertaining? That's from Anthony.
I have to say I think the answer is no, Anthony, because that's very similar to the case that I had with a client. As I say, his wife wasn't a director. Admittedly, she wasn't a shareholder, but I don't think that actually matters in the context of is she or isn't she an employee. HMRC said she has to be a bona fide employee on the payroll before they would allow staff entertaining.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Next one is a question from Jason, which I think is going to have a large answer to it, as it's about business use.
I was actually going to refer Jason to our video and our infographic for that one.
Oh, bonus.
Yeah.
Anyway, he says, I run a limited company which is currently in its early stages, and therefore I am currently using my home address as the office. Can I claim rent on my expenses?
Very good question, Jason, and the answer would almost certainly be yes. When you're working at home, you can claim a lot of business costs tax relief. We've got various articles about that on our website. We've also certainly got a video, and I'm not sure, but I think we may have an infographic too.
I think we have all of those things. So again, we'll post them up on the Hangout page as well. Great. So and if you go through to our website at freeagent.com as well and look on our blog, there's a lot that we've done in the past on business use of home.
There is.
So just type that into the search bar and you'll find the information that should be of help to you. Okay, next question from Andy, who says, we're a limited company and I've never claimed any petrol or travelling over the past few years. I've incurred expenses, but just have never got around to it. Can I make a retrospective claim without receipts, i.e. list the journeys and apply mileage? Okay,
well, if you can list the journeys, Andy, you're on firm ground, because to be honest, that's just about the only proof you would have. So make a list of the journeys, work out the mileage, and then I would say, yes, put that into your current accounts. Because your business is a limited company, it pays the same rate of tax when the profits are 0 to £300,000. So as a sole trader, you might have had to look at recreating your tax returns, refiling historic tax returns if the cost was significant. As a limited company, I would say list your journeys, calculate the mileage, put it into this year's accounts.
Okay, next question from Jennifer, who says, I own a limited company and I've been claiming mileage, train and parking for years. Recently a colleague said I couldn't as my place of work is not temporary. I checked at the HMRC website and it says any contract less than 2 years is classed as temporary. Okay,
it's not quite as simple as that, I'm afraid. The 2 years duration is just one part of the rules when it comes to working out whether a workplace is or isn't temporary. If you think a contract is going to last for more than 2 years, whether or not it actually does in the end, then that doesn't count as a temporary workplace. Also, the rule also applies for, are you visiting it regularly? Are you spending more than 40% of your time there? They're all factors that HMRC will look at, so you have to consider the whole picture, unfortunately. So yes, if you think the contract could be more than 2 years, if the plan is for the contract to be more than 2 years, then you have to think about, well, am I spending more than 40% of my time there? Am I making regular trips? Search on HMRC's website for ordinary commuting. There's a lot of useful information there.
Okay, we've got a follow-up from Jerome, who says, I've got another question regarding travel abroad. I don't charge the company for all restaurants, but from time to time, what are the rules for restaurants during a business trip? So I think that's for eating out or for entertaining.
Okay, Jerome, if you are eating out on your own when you're away on a business trip, then I'm presuming you're the director of a limited company. If you're eating out on your own, claim that as accommodation and meals. If you're meeting anybody and entertaining them to dinner, if they're not a bona fide employee of your company, I'm afraid that's business entertaining. Whether the person is a client or a prospect or a supplier, whoever they may be, if they're not an employee, it's business entertaining.
Okay, I hope that helps, Jerome. Actually got quite a nice one from Ada, who says, keep it going, Emily, your answers are great and concise. It's good to hear an accountant happy to answer questions.
Delighted to help, thank you.
Next question from Anders, who says, when could I claim expenses for a cup of coffee?
Oh, very interesting indeed. It depends partly if you are a sole trader or a limited company, because HMRC take the quite stern rule when it comes to food and drink, that everybody must eat in order to live. So they say that for that reason, it must have what they call an intrinsic private purpose, because you eat to stay alive. You don't just eat in order to do your job. And that applies even if you're eating more or more costly meals because you're running a business. There was a case some years ago where a self-employed carpenter claimed the cost of extra food because he said, well, I'm doing hard physical labour, I'm hungrier because of my work, so I want to claim the cost of that extra food. HMRC said no. So if you're a sole trader, you can claim the cost of food and drink when you are out and about on business, if you stay away overnight. When you're out and about, if your business is by nature itinerant, so that might be you go and visit different clients. For example, you're a chimney sweep or you're a jobbing gardener, but watch out if you visit the same clients regularly. HMRC might squash that on the basis that you're going there on a regular basis and it's not out of the ordinary. And the third point is if the journey is out of the ordinary for you. So, for example, I'm based here in Edinburgh. If I go down to, say, Nottingham to visit a customer, that's unusual. I don't do it all the time, so I could claim that. Limited company, if you're the director of a limited company, HMRC are a bit more generous. They allow you to claim tax relief on food and drink if you are out and about on a business trip. If you're away from your normal place of work on a business trip, that's the rules.
But if you, say, work regularly at Starbucks down the road to take advantage of their internet access, then you can't do it then?
No, I'm afraid you're out of luck because you're basically at your normal place of work on business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next question from Neil, who says, should a sole trader record his or her pension in FreeAgent books?
Okay, I assume you mean pension paid, Neil. If you do, then when you pay that out in FreeAgent, you need to explain it as money paid to user and drawings, because as a sole trader, your pension actually goes in a different place on your tax return. It goes on the main tax return. It's not part of your self-employment figures. So you need to explain that as money paid to user and drawings in your FreeAgent bank account.
Okay, there are a couple more follow-ups from Jerome here. I'll do this one first. He says, regarding VAT on travel expenses, how does it work regarding hotels, both inside the UK and outside? Okay,
Jerome, if you're registered for VAT, then you would be able to claim VAT that you pay on a business trip if you stay overnight at a hotel in the UK. For hotels overseas, it works a bit differently because you would be charged local VAT, so you'd be charged, say, French VAT or Spanish VAT. There are actually special rules for that. You actually have to write off to HMRC to reclaim that VAT. There's instructions for how to do it on their website. If you go to hmrc.gov.uk, you click on VAT, you go to international trade, there's a section there which talks about how to reclaim VAT when you've travelled abroad.
Okay, and there's another one that he's got here as well,
Yes.
talking a bit more about the business. He says, we're an alcohol business. When we organise tastings and we open bottles for free, how do we have to charge this? Because it's not like it's a gift.
Interesting.
So he says we can be opening like 20 bottles for 100 unidentified people. So he just wants to know how that would work as an expense.
That is really interesting, because I suppose what you're doing is essentially what we do when we provide a free trial or a free test account or something like that. You know, I would be tempted to claim that, Jerome. I would be tempted to claim for that cost. Rather than putting it as business entertaining on the basis it's wine, I would suggest putting it as something like advertising and promotion, but do be prepared to argue that with a HMRC inspector, and unfortunately it may depend on which HMRC inspector you get as to which way they interpret it. So I would say it's worth a try.
Okay, next question from Ross, who says, I'm a sole trader using FreeAgent. Delighted with it, by the way. Thank you very much, Ross.
Thank you.
You mentioned writing a list for fuel and travel expenses. Is there a section on FreeAgent to enter this expense? And what is the rate per mile also?
There most certainly is, Ross. You will find it under expenses. Which might be under My Money expenses, or it might just say expenses. There's a button there that allows you to add mileage. The rate is 20p a mile for a bicycle, 24 for a motorbike, and if you're driving a car or a van, it's 45p a mile for the first 10,000 miles you travel in a tax year, 25p a mile thereafter.
Excellent. Hope that helps. We'll go to a question from Alan, who says, can we claim for startup costs before the business was incorporated? So such as the purchase of stock and stationery, etc.
Alan, yes, you can. Those you can include so long as they... so long as you would have been able to claim tax relief on those costs when you actually paid for them, had the company been active at the time, yes, you can.
Okay, next question from Andy. He says, can I clarify, as a limited company, I can take my employees out and not clients and claim this? I thought it was only Christmas that you could do this.
Okay, Andy, well, there are a couple of different rules at play here. Basically, you can take your staff out, and you can put that in your company's books as staff entertaining and claim tax relief. But that might be a taxable benefit for your staff that you might have to report on forms P11D, unless the cost is under £150 per head that you entertain per year, and the event is what's called a qualifying event, and basically that would be an annual event open to all staff. The classic one's the staff Christmas party, but it might also be something like a summer barbecue. If it's a one-off event, for example, to celebrate winning a new contract, then no matter what the cost is, it's a taxable benefit.
Okay, a question here from Paul, who says, as a director, I work from home about 80% of the time. I occasionally spend 2 or 3 days at a time working for a client at their site. I've spent over 10 days with this client over the past 2 months. Can I claim sustenance?
I would say probably yes, you can, Paul, because you're away from your normal place of work on business. Your normal place of work is your home. My thinking would be yes, but if you're not sure, do check with your accountant.
Okay, we'll go to a question from Reese, who says, if I claim a portion of the interest part of my mortgage, will I be charged capital gains tax if I sell my house and make a profit? And if so, at what rate?
Reese, the answer is no, you won't be charged capital gains tax so long as you are not using a room purely for business. I do strongly recommend that you use a room in your house for business, but for something else as well. For example, my office at home doubles as my music room. If a visiting tax inspector ever challenged that, I would say, look, mate, there's a piano. How many accountants do you know who play the piano for work purposes? And that would actually prove the use of the room is mixed business and private, and that I could only claim the business element. So make sure that you use the room for mixed purposes. Okay.
Go here. It's a question from Jay Mumsby. Sorry, I don't have your first name there. Who says, I'm a student running a limited company while still in university, and most of the work I do is from my room. What type of expenses can I claim?
Well, firstly, Jay, congratulations on running your business from university. That's absolutely brilliant. To be honest, it depends on what you're actually paying for that room. Whether you're paying, if you're in hall, you might just be paying rent, so you could claim the business proportion of your rent. If you live in shared accommodation with other students, the same rules would apply to anyone else who's claiming business use of home. So check out the content on our site for more information on that.
Okay, he actually has a follow-up here as well. He says,
okay.
I purchased a laptop a couple of weeks ago using my personal account. Can my company buy the laptop from me at the price that I purchased it, and do I need to produce paperwork paperwork, such as an invoice, a receipt, etc.?
Okay, well, you must keep the paperwork, Jay. You must keep that for as long as you've got the asset and for 6 years afterwards, 6 years after you get rid of the asset. In terms of can the company buy it from you at the price you purchased for it, I would say that as the laptop's only 2 weeks old, the answer is yes, because the company would have to buy it from you at its market value at the time of purchase. And it sounds to me as though if you've only had it for 2 weeks, the drop in market value would be negligible. So I would say yes, it can.
Yeah, and there'd be no depreciation in
no,
value or anything.
I wouldn't think so, because I mean, okay, you could argue that the laptop depreciates as soon as you take it out of its box and use it because it's not brand spanking new. But to be honest, I'd be tempted to just use the purchase price, seeing as it is so new.
Okay. Next question here from Ivor. Sorry, his question's been here for a while. Really sorry we've not got to it until now. He says, my primary mode of transport to and from clients is bicycle. I claim travel expenses at the rate of 20p a mile. I've recently purchased a new bike for work purposes. Can I declare this purchase as a company expense?
That's very interesting, Ivor, because it depends if your business is a limited company or if you're a sole trader. If you're a sole trader, because there's no legal difference between you and the business, I would probably suggest you carry on claiming the 20p a mile. If you're running a business through a limited company, then you need to make the decision between, is the company going to own the bike or are you going to own the bike? In which case you claim 20p a mile if you own the bike. If the company's going to own the bike, then you'd put that in as an asset of the company in the books, and you'd put in the books any cost of actual repairs. But the thing with a bike is, my thinking is the running costs will actually be negligible, because for a car you have running costs like petrol and repairs and insurance and MOT and servicing. For a bike you'd have very little of that, so you might well find you get more tax relief doing 20p a mile, but get your accountant to crunch the numbers for you, Ivor.
Okay, moving on. Next question from Neil, who says, as a sole trader, I've heard that income protection insurance is tax deductible, but should this be put into your books in FreeAgent as an expense, or is it a separate field on your tax return and shouldn't be in as an expense?
Income protection insurance, the question is, does that have a dual purpose for business and personal? My gut thinking is no, it doesn't. It sounds like a business-only expense. So my thinking is that you would put that into FreeAgent as an expense and it would go in as insurance.
Okay, next question from James, who says, I cycle to work and use a dedicated cycle gym for a shower and a change of clothes near my place of work. Can this be claimed as a business expense? I also get my office shirts laundered as well.
I'm afraid you're out of luck there, James. No, that what HMRC would say is that you do that journey, you cycle to work in order to be able to live away from your place of work, and you cycle to work in order to stay healthy. Both of those they would say as personal, not business. So no, I'm sorry, you're out of luck.
Okay, a follow-up from Jerome again, who says, we've talked about restaurant expenses and hotels during a business trip. Are they limited? I know he means in the amount that you spend.
Yeah.
So is there a limit for the amount that you can spend on this?
HMRC don't actually set a limit as such, Jerome. They expect you to keep the costs reasonable. And what that means is, given that you're in the wine tasting business, I would hope they would allow you a bit of leeway when it comes to fine wines and what have you, if you had to taste them yourself. But watch out a little bit with things like hotels and food, because if you stay at sort of an ordinary hotel, then you'd be fine. If you stayed somewhere really expensive like the Dorchester or the, what's that really expensive hotel in Dubai called? The only 7-star hotel in the world, or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. If you stay there, HMRC are likely to squash it. So just watch out for that. Yeah.
So the penthouse suite in the Bellagio is
yes.
probably out.
That is probably out. Yes.
And actually, we've got another one here from Jerome again. He says, last but not least questions, I have a lot of expenses in foreign currencies. In FreeAgent, they're automatically exchanged into pound sterling. Does the rate applied in FreeAgent, is it okay for the taxman?
Yes.
Excellent. Good. Short and sweet. Hope that helps. And do have a final question here, unless we get another glut that comes in. We do have a couple more minutes, so if you've got a question and want us to ask it, then do put it in.
Yep.
We'll probably be keeping going for another 5 minutes or so, so if there's something you're desperate to ask us, then please do put it in. But we have a question here from Radoslava Again, I hope that I've pronounced that right. It says, hi guys, thanks for your detailed answers so far. As a sole trader, can I claim money I've paid for hiring other sole traders or companies, and are there limits to this? For example, a designer who I've hired to finish an app that I developed.
Absolutely, you can claim tax relief on that, no problem at all. Put in the costs that you actually paid, that's a bona fide business cost, you're fine.
Excellent. I'm going to ask a quick question here, because I know we've had this through in the support channels a couple of times about animals. So yeah, I've had a few questions about claiming for animals, whether it counts for your business or not. So can you tell me when it's okay to do this? When
can you claim tax relief on animals?
Yes.
Well, the interesting question is, if you are a farmer, obviously you will have animals, you'll have livestock, you'll have cattle, you'll have sheep, and the interesting thing is they will be treated differently depending on what you keep them for. So if you keep them for what they produce when they're dead, so their meat, as an example of that, or their skins, then they're treated differently from if you keep them for what they produce when they're alive. So that would be things like sheep's wool, or it might be eggs from your hens, or it might be honey from your bees. They're actually treated differently, and there is a blog about that on the FreeAgent site. The other typical question that comes up around animals is a working dog. Working dog, that, for example, a sheepdog on a farm, you would be able to claim tax relief on the cost of buying and caring for that dog. A guard dog that also looks after your business premises, your business equipment, again, I think you should be able to claim tax relief on the cost of feeding and veterinary care for that dog. The reason is because it's not also a pet animal, so it doesn't have a dual purpose. There was a very funny case on one occasion where a couple of tax inspectors visited a pub, and they said, well, we don't believe your dogs are guard dogs, we think they're family dogs. The pub landlord said to his dogs, watch that, man. And the dogs did as they were told. Suffice it to say, the VAT inspector needed a new pair of trousers and didn't challenge the cost ever again. The other point is a guide dog or a hearing dog or other assistance dog that helps you run your business. The thing is, there are two possible lines of thought to take on that. One is that you would have the dog anyway, and therefore you wouldn't be able to claim the cost of feeding and veterinary care for it. And the other side is that you wouldn't be able to run your business if you didn't have the dog, and therefore surely you should be able to claim some of the costs of feeding and veterinary care and what have you. I'd be inclined to take the second approach, but you never know what a HMRC inspector will say, so I would say discuss it with your accountant and see what you can do.
Okay, we've got a few more questions in now, so we'll take those. We'll probably call it a day after that, so so don't put any more into the Q&As, and we'll just do these ones if that's okay with everyone. The first one is from Paul, who says, how are bank charges handled, and are they taxable? We've had several international suppliers, and payments to them attract bank transfer charges.
Yes, Paul, you can claim tax relief on those.
Excellent. The next one from James, who says, mobile phones, previously the expense was treated 50-50 between business and personal use. Is this still the case? I have a limited company. Okay, well, James, the company can provide each employee with a mobile phone, so long as the contract is in the company's name, it must be. Or if it's pay-as-you-go, the company must pay for the phone itself and for the top-up vouchers, and then there's actually no taxable benefit anymore on the company providing one mobile phone to an employee. Okay, next question from Russell, who says, I'm the director of a limited company living and working in London. When I visit a client, I normally travel by the tube. The journeys are charged to my Oyster card on a pay-as-you-go basis. How do I calculate how much I can claim, and what proof would I need? Well, what you'd have to do, Russell, is you'd have to make a note of every journey you travelled, make a note of whether it was business or private, and then apportion how much you put onto your Oyster card based on that. If there are reports that the Oyster company produces that list the number of journeys you've taken, so much the better. Get your hands on that report, label each journey as business or private, and then work out, you do a bit of maths, work out the percentage of journeys that were business. Okay, next from Samuel, who says, I'm a sole trader contracting for a company in London. Can I claim for my lunch meals? And we've kind of covered this already. Yes, we have. It would depend, Samuel, on how long you are working at that company and whether it's whether it would count as a temporary or permanent workplace. We did talk about that earlier in the discussion. By the way, the video of this will be going straight up afterwards, so you will be able to watch this again. We do cover a lot about eating on the go and how much you can claim. We do also have have an infographic as well, which is about can I claim for my lunch on the go.
Yeah.
We'll post that through on the Hangout page as well. That takes you through, it's kind of a flowchart and says, you know, what you can and you can't claim for, and the circumstances around it. So hopefully that'll be useful too. Next question from Ivor again, who says, I'm currently on a 3-month contract, working 4 days a week at their premises. Am I able to claim the 20p per mile for travel to and from their premises? So he's the chap with the cyclist. Yeah.
Yes, I would say either the answer is yes, because it's a short contract, but I would say double check that with the ordinary commuting rules on HMRC's website if you're absolutely not quite sure. But my initial reaction is to think yes.
Okay, Jerome again, he says, I pay expenses by myself in foreign currency, and up until now, the company gives me these back in pound sterling. Is it possible to get the money back in a foreign currency?
Well, you can. The company can pay you back in whatever currency best suits you, Jerome. But the thing is, in FreeAgent, multi-currency banking is still in beta, so you might want to just have that in the back of your mind. But yes, the company can pay you back in whatever currency it wants to.
Okay, and actually a follow-up as well from Jerome, who says, we're going to have a non-paid intern this summer. We'll provide her with a SIM card / prepaid Oyster card. How can this be charged on his company email?
Okay, if your intern is only using those for business, then you would be able to claim tax relief on those in your company accounts, and there would be no taxable benefit for your intern. But I would question, Jerome, why aren't you paying your intern? If she's doing work for you, then I would say I think you should be paying her, but obviously that's for you to decide, not for me to interfere.
Work experience, Sam, work experience.
I was always paid for my work experience.
I wasn't.
Okay.
Last question we have here from Andy again, who says, what are the rules on mobile phones? I have a rubbish phone, but we mainly deal with Amazon now, where you need to reply to emails 24/7 from home and abroad. Can I claim for a good phone, and if so, what percentage?
Okay, Andy, well, it depends whether you're a sole trader or a limited company. If you're a limited company, then yes, the company can provide you with a good phone, no taxable benefit to you. The company must buy the phone, the contract must be in the company's name. If the company does that, then you're absolutely fine, no taxable benefit. If you're a sole trader, then yes, by all means, buy yourself a good phone, put the business use through your business books. If you use it privately at all, then apportion the use of the phone and put only the business proportion through the books. Apart from that, yep, you're absolutely fine.
Excellent. I think that's it. We've got a final comment through from Neil, who says, thanks guys, great job. Thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
A pleasure as always. And yeah, I think that's going to be it. Emily, thank you very much again.
My pleasure, Adrian.
Always
Thank
a pleasure. Again, sorry we've not done this for a couple of months, but we do plan to actually be running these Hangout sessions once a month. They'll be about different topics as well, so keep an eye out through on all of our social channels, like our Facebook page, our Google Plus, our Twitter, everything, where we'll be telling you exactly what we're going to be doing and what's coming up. We do have regular Q&As as well every week up on Facebook and Google Plus, which are done by text. So kind of the same thing, but you can't see our lovely faces. But Emily is usually there as well, and she'll be on hand to answer questions.
Yep.
So,
yeah, and see, Jerome has said, okay, Jerome, I do apologise for throwing that completely undeserved rotten tomato at you. Your intern insisted on an unpaid internship because she's coming from abroad. Fair enough.
So yeah, so we do have our Q&A. So pay attention to all our social channels, and we'll tell you what they're going to be. They are usually on Wednesday mornings at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
British summertime. So do join us for those and get involved. The sessions are always great when we have a lot of questions.
They are, yes, they are. The more the better. Just
like this one, really good fun for us.
Yeah.
So do that. And if you have any more questions or things that you need to know about expenses, do go over to freeagent.com as well and look up on our blog. We've got topics ranging for the last sort of 5 or 6 various different parts of expenses.
Absolutely.
And you can probably
white papers,
infographics. You can pretty much find most of the stuff I think you're going to need there. And of course, if you're a FreeAgent user and you have any issues about what you can and can't be claiming within FreeAgent, how to do it, then do drop a line through to our support team as well, at support@freeagent.com, or to give them a ring, and they will be more than happy to help you. Once again, thank you very much for
thank you for your time, everyone.
For your time and joining in. This video will be available afterwards, so go and have a look at it if you didn't get to see the whole thing. And we will see you next time.
Great.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye all.